Hello, welcome to Flourish ICT Academy. Last week, I started an introduction to Microsoft Excel for beginners, and in that class, it was a live class on YouTube. I explained how to open Microsoft Excel and how to do your basic work in Microsoft Excel, the layout of Microsoft Excel, and also the cell formatting in Microsoft Excel. It was a very interesting section. So I would like to encourage you. That was the foundational class to Microsoft Excel, which was done as a live video on Sunday. Check the description on this video. On the description section, you are going to see the link to that video. If you have not watched it, I will recommend that you first and foremost watch that video before you come back. Excel is wide and it is very interesting application. So I'm going to be taking you on a journey, and I can assure you, you are going to enjoy the ride. Our objective is to train beginners to become guru in any of our training applications that we are working on. So take your time. If you have your computer with you, that would be fantastic, so that as I'm actually doing this training, you can open your computer, open your Excel application, and then some of the examples we are going to be looking at, you can demonstrate that on your system. And if you encounter any challenge, you can don't hesitate to reach out. You can write on the comment section to ask your question. You can drop a message on the WhatsApp chat. I've received a lot of questions from Uganda, from South Sudan, from South Africa, around the African country. And then in the last training session as well, we had somebody that joined from all the way from Macedonia. Thank you so much for following up. You guys have been giving me the energy to actually go further and try as much as possible to break the training session down for you to for you to be able to understand it better. We are going to be focusing going forward on formulas and functions in Excel for beginners. Formulas and functions in Excel for beginners. Even though we are going to talk about the text function as well, because Excel also has a powerful feature for you to manipulate text. Okay, but however, the core function of Excel, it goes beyond that. So that is why we are going to be focusing on the formulas and the functions in Microsoft Excel, especially for beginners. Okay, there are several functions in Microsoft Excel, such as arithmetic function, logical function. When we talk about the logical function, we are talking about and, or, then if statement. Those are logical function. Test function, you are going to join a column with another column. You are going to need a test function to be able to do that. In a data analysis, we have what we call categorical data and numerical data. So when you are working with the categorical data, it's very important to be skillful in some of the test function. So I will be teaching you all of that for free on this channel. Okay, so then we have what you call statistical or data analytical function. We have financial function and many more functions in Microsoft Excel. So we're going to be focusing on many of those functions in the training. Some of them we are going to start today and then in the subsequent one. So if you want to acquire Excel skills that will make you to flourish in any of these areas that I've mentioned, whether you want to go into financial sector, you want to be a data analyst, and then and so many others area or many skills that you need like that, then I will encourage you, go ahead and subscribe if you have not done so, so that you can be notified when I do another training in those areas, and then you can get to know. Now let's get started. In the last lesson that we did, we started with formula in Microsoft Excel. Okay, a formula is an expression which calculate the value of a cell. Okay, a formula is an expression that calculate the value of a cell. Functions are predefined formulas and are already available in Excel. Functions, like I actually show us that this is fx, this is a function in Excel. This fx, this is where we are going to access all the functions that we have in Microsoft Excel. If you click on the fx, then you have access to the function. When I talk about the function, for example, sum function, average is a function, concatenate is a function, sum if, there are so many functions like that that we have, media mode, and so on like that. They are functions. So in order to access them, you come over to the fx, and then remember I explained also that this is actually referred to as your formula bar or the address bar. Whenever you enter into a cell, you are going to see it on this bar. So that is why we call it the address bar. or we can call it a formula bar. So on this bar, you are going to see whatever value that you enter into your cell. Okay, we also talk about this also as your name box. It helps you when you actually select a cell to know the address of that cell without looking at the column and then looking at the row to know what address you have. So this is a name box. You can actually know what is the name of the cell that you are currently on, that you have selected. For example, when I click on the one cell here, this is selected cell for me now. That is what M9. I'm on cell M9. So it's easier for me to know which cell I'm actually on by just tapping on, by looking at the name box. So that is what some of the stuff that we discussed in the last lesson. Now we're going to go further by entering a formula, but take note of this. To enter a formula in Microsoft Excel, you are going to execute the following step. The first thing is that select a cell. Okay, you select the cell that you want the formula to be. So this is to let Excel know that you want to enter a formula. For example, if I want it to be on M9, this cell is already selected. So the next thing that you are going to do to let Excel know that you want to enter a formula is to type an equal sign. You must type an equal sign anytime you want to do a calculation, you want to use formulas and function in Excel. It must begin with an equal sign. So this will let Excel know that you want to actually enter a formula. And the third thing is, for example, you type the formula. So let's go ahead and do that in this, for example. For example, look at the cell A1 and A2. We want to put the formula in cell A3. So what we do now is that in this cell A3, I press equals to. Now, I am telling Excel that I want to do a calculation by typing the equals to. So Excel is already aware by equals to that I want to put a formula in that place. So cell A3 will contain a formula which will have the value of cell A1 and cell A2. So this is cell A1 and cell A2. Now what do I need to do now? I press A1, I can do A1 plus A2, right? Now when I type A1, you notice that the cell is selected and it has a color around the rectangulars that you have on the cell A1 and another color to indicate cell A2. So this helps you to know in the address bar or in the formula bar in the cell that you have selected that these are the cells that you are referring to. For example, look at the address bar. At the top, you have A1 plus A2, and that's cell A1 plus A2. If I press enter, you have 5 as the answer, right? Now, let me ask you a question right now. Why not go ahead and just type 2 plus 3? Why do I need to do A1 plus A2? If I go ahead and I start with equals to as well, and I do 2 plus 3, then I press enter, I'm going to get the same answer, 5, 5, which is correct, okay? Now, let me tell you a story. Sometimes ago, we needed to conduct an interview for someone, and then we gave them an exercise like this. The question was very simple, all right? Something like 2 plus 3. You know, everybody would think that this is a nursery 1 question. Why are you asking me 2 plus 3? They just went ahead in an Excel. We gave them an Excel to use. Somebody just went ahead and put 5 in the cell that was selected for the answer to be. However, what we are looking for is just to test, the minimum knowledge you could expect that somebody who said knows how to use Excel actually know how to put a simple formula together in Microsoft Excel. So how do I know? Because whether you actually type 5 there because you know the answer offhand, or you use the formula that is expected to be used when you are dealing with Excel, is straight by looking at the address bar. When we look at the address bar, and I discover that, oh, this is A plus 2 as I have in the address bar, I'll say this is fantastic. This is my address bar, A plus 2. This is what is expected. Now, let's look at what happened. But what happened because I click on cell A3 right now, when I click on cell A4 and I look at the address bar, I could see 2 plus 3. Now, this is not what is expected. Okay, you got 5. Why is it not expected? Why is there a challenge with this kind of formula? The reason is this. You can easily go ahead. Let's try something. Remember, this is A2 plus A3, which is the value. In Excel, when you are doing your addition, you don't add the number that you have in the cell. You don't add the value. you must not add the value. You will add the address that contain the value. Okay, the address is A1, the address is A2. So you are adding A1 plus A2. Automatically, Excel will add the content of that address together. And remember, you are only adding numerical value. You must not add a text value together with number. You are going to end up with an error. I'm going to do a training on Microsoft Excel error. Some of the errors that when you see them, you know that you have actually violated one of the rules. It will come out with an error. So how do you know that what type of error is that and how to resolve it? I will teach you how to identify that. Okay, but before we get to that level, now, like I said, it's very important because now 2 plus 3, I get 5. A1 plus A2 also giving me 5. But it is correct and better and smarter and expected to use A1 plus A2 because this value can change at any time. Okay, I can come back. Imagine that Excel has over 1 million rows and I needed to add about 100,000 of rows of a database of maybe a sales record for the month together all the record that you have had in a month. And then we realize that, hey, during the data entry, there was a mistake. By the time you were going through your invoice again, the hard copy, you are cross-checking and realize that where a value is supposed to be entered as 20, it has been entered as 35 or as another thing. How do you correct that without recalculating the old value again? That is by using the address of the cell when you are actually using formula in Microsoft Excel. So we are going to change the value that we have in 2 to 5, for example, and I press enter. What happened? The address, okay, the cell where we have the formula, which is A3, automatically changed to 8. I don't need to recalculate it. But what happened? The other one on cell A4, because we did it manually as if we use a calculator, the answer remained as 5. So you can see the difference between this and this. The two of them, one is 2 plus 3, the other one is A1 plus A2. So this is the reason why whenever you are working in Microsoft Excel, don't try to outsmart the system. The rule of thumb is that add the address, multiply the address. You are making reference to the address of the cell, not the content, not the value of the cell. Now, in addition to that, you might want to edit the formula. Okay, if I need to edit the formula now for this, instead of A1 plus A2, maybe I want to change it to multiplication. All I need to do is to go to the address bar. Okay, that's the essence of this address bar. I'm going to change the plus to multiplication. Remember, in Microsoft Excel, your multiplication sign is not X like we have in calculator or when you are doing your mathematics manually. Your multiplication sign is star, and on the keyboard the multiplication sign is on top of number 8. So you press the shift key down on the keyboard and press 8. Then you have access to your multiplication sign. So A1 now multiplied by A2. Okay, we have changed it. Then move your cursor to the end of the A2 and press the enter key. Correct. What do we have there? We have 15. That is 5 multiplied by 3, which is actually A1 multiplied by A2. You realize A4 still remain what it is. Why? Because it was done manually. To change the value, you have to go ahead and manually change it again. So that is not the way to work. I just try to show you how that works so that you don't go to that route at any point in time. So I'm going to delete that right now. So that's how to actually do a simple formula. Whether it's complex or it's more than this is how to go. You can also copy a formula. Okay, you can copy and paste the formula. For example, this is a formula that we already put in cell A3, and I want to do the calculation for cell B3, the value that we have in B1 and B2. I don't need to repeat all I've done here. There are two ways you can do that. I can do Ctrl C, copy. I go over, I click on the cell where I want to paste, and I do Ctrl V, and I press enter. You can see automatically Excel will reference B1 and B2. Okay, because I put the value, the formula in cell B3. So that is B1 if you look at the address bar. So that's how it works. It does that for you automatically. You can copy formula from one point to another. Excel will automatically automatically calculate that for you. If you have 67 here and then I have 35 here, okay, and I want to multiply that, I can just go ahead and copy the multiplication sign and I do Ctrl V and I press enter. You can see, you look at the address bar, you can see that Excel has done C15 multiplied by C16. This is what? C15. Look at the name box. And this is what? Your C16. And that is what you are C15 multiplied by C16. So you can copy and paste a formula from one set to another. Another, if what you are doing is the same with the value that you want to get in another cell. So alternatively, from copy, you can also drag, okay? This is the simplest method of doing it. You can drag. So this is a rectangular box. You can grab it. This anchor that we have with the rectangular box, where the rectangle actually meet together down here, grab it and drag it over. When you do that, you have the same answer. So instead of copy and paste, you can actually drag. If you drag it across, then you are able to calculate all the value that you want to calculate. So that's the simplest method or the simplest way of doing your calculation when you are using formula to copy formula from one cell to another, or you can go ahead and drag the formula, the cell that contains the formula across another cell. You are going to get the answer automatically there. Now, also important for me to state here that we have what you call operator precedence in Microsoft Excel, just like your normal mathematical calculation. Excel uses a default order, so in which calculations occur. So if a part of the formula is in parentheses, that means that will be calculated first. Remember the BODMAS. Excel also use what we call BODMAS, bracket of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So that is the order that Excel will follow. If you have a value that is actually in that order to be calculated by Microsoft Excel. So that is that. Then how to insert a function. I've also explained that, like I said, you also have the fx here in order to insert a function. So every function has the same structure. For example, we have what you call the sum function, like I said. So the name of this function is sum. So let me give you an example of that. Now, if you have a value here, let's increase the value that we have here to let's add one more value to it. Now, on cell A5, for example, we are going to insert a function there. So the first thing to do is to select the cell. Remember that you want the formula to be where the answer is going to be. Then click the insert function button, which is fx. I showed you that earlier on. When you click that, then the insert function dialog box will appear. Then click on the sum, and then I do OK. Okay. When I do OK to that, it's already picking cell A1 to A4. So you look at it. We've talked about the range. So this one means A1 colon A4. It means cell A1, A2, A3, and A4. And interestingly, if you look at the front of the dialog box, the cell that was picked, you are going to see the value of the cell. So you can easily look at it. Just peep at it, A1 to A4. We have 5, 3, 15, and 45, correct? So that is correct. So you know that the value that Excel has picked for you automatically is actually correct. And interestingly, Excel will also give you the answer. You can look at the summary over down here. So even before you come down to the cell where you have put the formula, you are going to see the preview. And the preview in the dialog box will also give you the answer. If I go ahead and click OK, so you can see I have 48. So click on the cell that contains the answer and look up on the address bar. You can see what was summed together. Equals to sum A1 column A4. So this is one of the functions that we have in Excel. The same way we use the sum function, that is the same way you use every other function. The function will come with the value and an argument, okay? So for example, now you have the sum as the function name, you have the A1 as the argument, then column that you have there is 2. So A1 to A4. So Excel means that you are going to add cell A1 to cell A4. So that's how to use function in Microsoft Excel. Now, the next thing we are going to be talking about now is cell references. This is very important, and I'd like you to pay attention to this. You will always work with this. You will always need it. As long as you are using Microsoft Excel, it's important for you to know this, and I'm going to break it down as much as possible. We are going to do that with the table that we have on the screen right now. Now, before I go further with that, if you are watching this video, you are watching this training, you have not subscribed, go ahead and click the subscription button now. Also, like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and that will give me more energy to actually produce more training that is relevant to you. And if you have any comments or any area that you want me to actually discuss or do a training on, drop that in the comment section as well. We are working on all the requests that we have gotten, and very soon you are going to have a video available in that area. Now, let's go back to our discussion, cell references. Now, before I discuss fully about the cell references, take note of the table. Now, we are going to be using the value that we have from D, cell D what? This is D1 to cell J12. Let me see. Yes, this is D1 to cell J12. If I highlight the entire cell, I'm going to see that. So this is cell D1 to cell J12. We are going to be using the value that we have here to explain what I mean by cell references. Now, before then, take note of something. You can see this line. It's like, why is this line, this line that we have here, why is it bold? Okay, and the other lines that I have here look fainted, whereas this one is bold. The reason for that, you can do that in your Microsoft Excel. You can actually go to border and shading and put a border around the cell if you wish to do so. I'm going to do a training on printing. We are going to get there. It's part of the module for this Microsoft Excel, part of our training series we are going to learn. Now, coming back to this, you can actually highlight the cell that we have here. For example, look at the first, all this cell that we use, A and B column that we use. All I need to do is to highlight, and I will come to our border. Okay, this is border. Okay, cell border. I can do all border. If I do that, you can see there's a border. There's a border line. So you can decide to put a border line around your job or you skip it. The choice is yours. So by default, Excel will not give you the border. So you are the one to decide if you want the border to show or not. No border, that means I don't want any border. So no border, don't bother. Right? I don't want to bother about the border. That's just on a lighter note. Now, let's continue with cell references. Cell references in Excel are very important. Understand the difference between relative, absolute, and mixed reference, and you're on your way to success. So there are three types of cell references. We have relative, okay, we have absolute, and then we have mixed cell references. All the one we have been talking about before now, they are actually relative reference. We have done that earlier on today. What is it all about? Relative cell reference are basic cell references that adjust and change when copied or when using autofill. So for example now, when I actually copy a formula from here, now let me give you a practical example of that. Let's put answer for this. We are going to do multiplication of A1 and B1. Let's do equals to, now you remember we are going to do A1 multiplied by B1, and then we press enter. Great. Now if you look at it, you can see A1 multiplied by B1. So if I grab this as an autofill, right, and I drag it down up to this point. So now what happened with relative reference is this. Relative reference is that A1 multiplied by B1. The A1 multiplied by B1 is relative to the value of A1 and B1. So this cell value is relative to the other two that are beside it, A1 to B1. When I move to C2, what did you notice? In C2, it has changed to A2 multiplied by B2. It's no longer A1 multiplied by B1. When I move to C3, it is now A3 multiplied by B3. So the value in cell C3 is relative to column A, row 3, column B, row 3, which is A3 and B3. So when you move to another cell, okay, where you have the formula, you discover that there is no constant value. The value keep changing. I mean, the cell address keep changing in order to produce the new result that you have. That is what we mean by relative cell references, okay? the answer that you have, the cell that contains the formula, is relative to another cells, not the previous cells. So that is what we mean by relative cell reference. Now, what about absolute cell reference? I'm going to use this value, this table to do that. Now, this is a question that I put together, that the basic salary has been increased for all employees by 15%. These are the employee ID in ABC company staff salary structure that we have in an Excel. Now, this is a dummy data. I don't know any ABC company, so I put this together in order to be able to show you what we are going to do today. Now, these are the employee ID A0012, to A010. These are 10 employees in that company. This is the basic salary. Now you can see that I can't see this value here. The reason is that I put a figure here. Unfortunately, the cell address, okay, is the column is too narrow and cannot contain it. So I discussed in the first lesson how you can increase the column width. So anytime you see the hash error like this in Microsoft Excel, it means that the column is smaller compared to the value that you have there. So the column squeeze the value together. In order to see the real value, all you need to do is to double click on the column, or you grab it and then you expand it. So two ways you can do that. Auto expand is to double click on the column. Yes, the line between column E and F, you double click on it or you grab it and expand it. Then you are able to see the value that we have. The same thing, transport is not showing well here, so let's expand that. Oh, okay, but this is too wide compared to the value. Remember, I told you that you can actually do this. Then we can click on the cell F2 that contain the value for transport allowance, and then I can make it to wrap test, okay, in order to break it into two lines and then reduce the column width but expand the row. So this is better. Housing is okay, payout is okay. Then this is now the increment. So the basic salary has been increased by for all employees by 15%. So the question is asking us to calculate the new total take home for all employees. So this is the question. Calculate the new total take home of each of the employees. So we are going to be calculating the total take home for each employee, Now, the first thing to do is that this is the housing. What is the current payout? This is the current payout. We are going to be adding basic plus transport allowance and housing together to know the current payout. So we do that. Let's go ahead and get that done. We start with equals to, right? Or if you like, you can use the sum function as well. But this value is not long. This is just 3 cells that we want to add. So I may not bother to go to sum function. If you have a lot of cells that you want to add together, a range of cells that even start from 4 and above, please use the sum function. Okay, so we are going to get the same answer whether we are using the sum function or we are using this. I can go ahead as well and do equals to, right? Then I do the first one. You can also click on this. This is E, and I do plus on my keyboard. I can drag this and then I can click one and then I do plus and I can do this. So I just added E3 plus F3 plus G3. Then I press enter. So this is the answer that is given to me, 7,747. Having had the three together. How do I know? Click on the cell that contain the formula. Look at your address bar. You can see. So like I said, you can decide to also go ahead and start with sum function. Let's delete the value. Then we go to this and then we select the sum and then we click OK. It's going to give it to you E3 to G3. That is what you want, which is this value plus this value. So we have the answer as our preview here. Then you go ahead and click OK. You have the answer. Now take note, you already have your answer into 2 decimal places. Remember, currency should be into 2 decimal places, naira and kobo. If you are doing this in naira, if it's in dollar, dollar and cent. So you are expected because you can have .50, .47 and so on and so forth like that. And you can look at it. I've explained this in the cell formatting in the first lesson. This is accounting. This column has been formatted as accounting. All of this column that contain the money has been formatted as accounting. So that's why it's automatically changing, and then you can see it with the 2 decimal places. Now, in order to calculate for the rest of the staff, their payout, all I need to do is to grab this, undo, and do autofill. Drag it down until you get there. So you have all the answer here. So, and all you have here, they are actually relative reference because the H4 right now is relative to what? E4 and G4. While H5 is relative to E5 and G5. Now, in order to calculate the payout, remember the question said the basic salary was increased by 15%. So now this is a constant value that need to be multiplied by the basic salary. This is where we talk about an absolute reference. So what is an absolute reference? An absolute reference is designated in a formula by the addition of a dollar sign before the column and row. The first question you are going to ask yourself, where is the constant value that you need to use to multiply by all other values that were given? So cell E3 to E12, they are variables. As you can see, they are variable and they are relative to each of the employee. But the percentage to be multiplied is constant. So anytime you have a constant value, remember, it's just like you are converting a currency with a static and exchange rate. If you are giving an exchange rate today, maybe the data that you have in your office, you are dealing with a transaction that will involve you to actually multiply your sales record by an exchange rate. Your exchange rate for a particular day is a constant value all through that day, and it's going to be vary. You are going to be using it to multiply different other other data that you have. Maybe your sales data, you want to multiply one value with the constant exchange variable. That is when we use an absolute reference. And we said an absolute cell reference is a formula, okay, by the addition of a dollar sign before the column and a row. That's how to designate an absolute. You must use a dollar sign before the row and the column where the absolute value resides. So our absolute value in this case, which is the constant value, is 15%. And that 15% is on cell what? This is on cell I2. Great. So the first thing I need to know, remember the dollar sign we are talking about is not the symbol of currency in this case. It's the same symbol, right? But we are not using it as a currency symbol. We are using it as an absolute value to designate our constant value. So I have my absolute value on our cell what? This is cell I2. So I2, what does that mean? I2, that is column I and row number 2. And then by definition, we say absolute reference is designated in a formula by the addition of its dollar sign before the column and row. So before the column, before I'm going to put a dollar sign, right? And before row number 2, I'm going to put a dollar sign. I hope that is clear. Before a dollar sign. Before row 2, a dollar sign. That is how to actually represent an absolute value in a formula. Remember, we are using $I, $2 because the constant value is on I2. If the constant value happen to be in another cell entirely, you take note of the address of the cell that hold the constant value, and then you add the dollar sign before the column, add the dollar sign before the row number as well. So that's how to go about that. Now let's go ahead and do that here. So I'm going to come to this. Remember, we are multiplying the basic by 15%, and the 15% is on I2 like we did earlier on. So the first value that we have for the basic is actually this, which is on E3. So I will come over here and I'm going to do equal sign. Now this time around, I'm not going to use the function. You have to do it manually. E3, then multiply by the 15%, which is on I2. Remember, you're going to put a dollar sign. A dollar sign on your keyboard is shift and number 4. $I, and then shift and number 4 again for another $2. Now, when I did that $I, $2, you can see the cell I2 that has a 15% is selected, and you can see it indicated with red. And then the cell E3 is also selected, and you can see indicated with blue. So what do I need to do now is to press enter. Great. Okay, this is the percentage increase, right? This is the percentage increase. So the increment for the basic is going to be 984. That means we are going to be adding this percentage increment to the actual basic to know the new basic. So let's go ahead right now. And then you grab the autofill again. Remember, we don't need to repeat that for the calculation that we did on cell I3 for all of the other cells. So just grab and drag it down. Great. Now we have dragged down. Remember, we are going to expand this in order to get rid of this hash error. So I do a double click to get rid of it. Now, what you didn't notice right now, let's look at this. I click on this cell, I3. Now, you can see from the address bar, E3 multiplied by $I, $2. When I move to another formula cell, which is I4, $I, $2 multiplied by E4. When I move to I6, is E6 multiplied by. So what we are saying is that this value is not changing as the formula, the cells that contain the formulas are changing. That is absolute cell reference. You have locked the cell down in order to repeat it, whereas where you have the employee basic is changing, but the percentage increment is not changing. So that's how to actually do absolute reference in an Excel, and that's how to calculate it. So if it precedes the column or row, now take note, if the dollar precedes the column or row, maybe only column, let's say maybe I, $2, right? This is called a misreference. In this case now, it's only the row 2 that is being locked down. The I is variable, right? So that is exactly what the misreference is all about. But when you have the dollar before the column and the row, that is absolute. When you have just a single dollar, either before the row or the column, that is a mixed reference. So what I'm going to say about this is that you will use the relative and absolute format in most formula. So mixed references are used less frequently. So that's why I'm not going to discuss or focus more on it than what I have said about the mixed reference in this lesson. Now let's go ahead and complete this table. So you are going to insert a new column, then call it new basic. Oh, okay, updated basic, whatever name you want to give it, right? So you go ahead right now and then calculate. You are going to add the cell in I column together with E column. That will give you the updated basic. Then the new payout, you are now going to add all the value that you have in new basic, right? Plus what you have as housing, and then you are going to add it to transport allowance. That is going to give us our new payout. So that's how to calculate the new payout. When you are done with that, you can do the total down here for the company to know how much exactly they are going to be paying now. So let's calculate the new basic. The new basic now is going to be equals to, now in this case now you might not be able to use the sum function. Remember, because you are not adding all the cell that is next to each other. So now we are adding just E3 and I3 together. Press enter on your keyboard. So instead of this employee A001 earning 6,565 before as the basic, it has increased to 7,549.75. So you can go ahead and grab the auto fill right now, and then you do the same for other to know how much their basic is now going to be. So what is now the new payout is going to be, we do equals to, and then add the new basic together with the transport allowance, then plus sign, plus the housing, plus sign, and then plus the new basic, right? That's great. So you press enter on your keyboard. So this employee old payout now is 7,747, but it's now going to be going on with 8,731.75 as the new payout plus the housing and transport and basic allowance. So you do that to get all the other one. You drag down. So use autofill to calculate the rest. So when you are there, now you can see this is going to be the new payout for all the employee ID, and then this is the old payout. Then you can designate, you can use a color to actually negate and let them know that this is no longer feasible. Okay, so now to calculate all the total here for the company to know how much they are going to pay out at the end of the day, you can highlight all the value and then do auto sum. Then you know that this company called ABC company, staff salary at the end of the month for the 10 employee basic transport and housing allowance is going to be paying out 81,209 and 85 kobo if it is Nigerian naira. If it is USD, that's 81,209 and 85 cent that will be paid out at the end of every month. So I've used this to actually explain in detail to you the sum function and then the absolute and relative cell reference. I believe you have learned something in this lesson today. I want to appreciate you for taking your learning journey with me. In the next lesson, let me give you a tips of what we are going to do. I'll be taking you on a journey on test function, how to join strings in Microsoft Excel. In that lesson as well, we are going to be using some of the tools that we have in Excel, okay, that you may not have used before. And that is the beginning of your journey to data analysis. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and click the subscription button now. And if you have any question or concern with what we have done today, don't hesitate to drop that in the comment section. If you enjoyed this training, give us a thumbs up. Thank you and see you in the next lesson. Bye.